This podcast is sponsored by the White Bear, your local micropub on Southbourne Grove, where you can't watch the game, but you can definitely talk about it. Head to the White Bear on any AFCB match day wearing your team shirt and receive 30p off each pint. Check out www.thewhitebear.co.uk.
Here come the cherries and we're heading for the top of the tree. Bournemouth is a team that's going to show Division 3. Here come the leaders and the scorers at the Saturday, showing how to win the Southern way. So we sing, come on Bournemouth, come on Bournemouth. While you're out there winning, hear the shouting and the singing. We sing, come on Bournemouth, come on Bournemouth. Here come the cherries, here come the cherries, here come the cherries, number one.
Hello and welcome to All Departments. Our Champagne Cherries staked a claim to the greatest back-to-back results in the club's history on Saturday, as they followed up last week's win at Chelsea with a well-deserved 2-1 victory over perennial champions Manchester United. Here to reflect on where it all went right is Dean Court matchday announcer Mike Botto. Mike, how are you?
Yeah, very good. Yourself?
Yeah, brilliant, obviously.
Yeah.
It's not a very good idea to start a podcast by saying I'm lost for words, but I'm running out of superlatives at the moment. What a momentous day yesterday was for our football club.
Yeah, it really was, and it capped off a pretty fantastic week for us, didn't it? It was, a really, really special day. I think I tweeted at the end of the game, it was kind of hair on your neck, tear in your eye kind of stuff, and it really was. I got quite choked up at the end there, just kind of took a moment and looked at all four stands, and an incredible atmosphere, an incredible performance on the pitch as well, and really, really special one. It
was an unbelievable day. Before we go on, I just wanted to make special mention of Harry Arter. Him and his partner, as everybody knows by now, lost their baby daughter at birth, and I can't think of too many things that could be worse to happen to a family. No. And the strength that he showed yesterday by first of all playing and then the performance that he put in. I mean, I don't use these words lightly, but it was superhuman, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, and like you say, that there isn't much worse that you can imagine happening to you. You wouldn't wish it on anybody, and I thought, he showed just remarkable bravery, like you say, taking to the pitch and playing in the manner he did, and keeping his head, which doesn't necessarily always come naturally to Harry. But I just thought he was just wonderful, and I think credit to his teammates as well who were around him, and obviously you saw the scenes with Eddie and Harry towards the end of the game. It was a real team effort. It really echoed and enhanced this feeling that we have that we are a family club, and we really are together.
Yeah, and our hearts go out to them, and we wish them well. I think that what you said there about the much talked about team spirit at the club, we saw through unfortunate circumstances the depth of that yesterday, and what a special bond the team and the management have. And it just no way would I have chosen to see it in those circumstances, but it is tremendously impressive, and like I said, obviously we just wish them well, and hopefully Harry will find some solace in the support that he's had from those around him and from the fans.
Yeah, absolutely. My heart goes out to him. It really does. It really does.
So, moving on to the game, which Harry played a big part in. No surprises with the lineup. Eddie kept the same team that won at Chelsea. It would have been a bit of a blow to any of those players if they'd have been dropped after that. Obviously, you can get other reasons that you can't play, but he stuck with them. I think most people would have predicted that. Adam Federici came back on the bench. His injury seems to have cleared up a lot quicker than first thought. So poor old Ryan Allsop was made his Premier League debut, and then must have been sitting around for a couple of days after that thinking, hang on a minute, I could play against Chelsea and Man United. And I've barely made an appearance in the first team for 2 years, but he's out of the squad at the moment. United, well, heard a lot about how many injuries they've got. obviously we can compete with them not just on the pitch but on the treatment table as well.
Yeah.
But they still played an expensive lineup. Obviously, they're a huge club and all that. In the days leading up to the game, there was, on the back of the Chelsea result, a fair amount of confidence, I think, from the Bournemouth fans about what was going to happen. Did you feel confident?
I thought it would be tight. I did. People were asking me on the day, and I thought there'd probably be a goal in it, and I wasn't sure which way that goal would hang. Delighted, obviously, that it went our way. I was surprised by how poor United were, because actually, if you look at the results going into the game, they were actually in the Premier League unbeaten and have been for quite some time. They dropped some points in the last couple of games. But there were wins in there as well in their recent form, so they weren't completely out of sorts. But yeah, no, there was an air of optimism around. Everybody I spoke to on the way to the ground and at the ground were very positive.
Yeah, I agree. I was expecting much better from United. I mean, everybody knows they're not the United of old, but we've gone to Man City and had Tottenham here and struggled quite badly against both those teams. And United are in and around them at the top of the table. And despite the flack that they've been getting for their style of play and getting knocked out of the Champions League and all that, I was expecting a team that would be much more accomplished than Chelsea, because Chelsea, although we're all enjoying their demise, are having a bad season, and it was a surprise us beating them. But then I suppose if you take a step back and look at how the two teams have been performing of late, it wasn't a huge surprise in terms of form. But yeah, United, I just expected them to just look more like a top four team, and they really didn't, did they?
No, they didn't. I think there are parallels to be drawn between both Chelsea and United, not just in terms of perhaps the atmosphere around their clubs at the moment, but also the style of play that they have. They're not totally dissimilar. I think you mentioned there the defeats to Tottenham and to Man City, and they're a team that play with pace. There's a real tempo to both those teams. And United and Chelsea, it's a slower, more lethargic game that they play. They look to nick wins, and they're not as open as they could be. And actually, perhaps that's a style that suits us coming up against them, because we certainly did both teams some damage.
Yeah, and we didn't waste any time in doing the damage yesterday. We like to start quickly, and sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. Against Tottenham, it didn't really work, unfortunately. But I've probably said this about 15 times on this podcast. I'm always a bit wary of an early goal, but at the same time, you'd rather score a goal than concede one at any point in the match. So we scored early yesterday. There was a lot of good work from Josh King in the first minute or so, and he caused them problems throughout, and he won a free kick, which was taken by Junior Stanislas and then kind of cleared away by the United defence. I think Fellaini and Mata in the pitch, and gave us a corner. And then Junior Stanislas, who's taken over a lot of the dead ball duties recently, in his resurrection, I think we could call it, especially. I was going to say at this time, the resurrection was at Easter, but anyway, never mind that. He whipped it in swinging corner. There was a bit of wind, I think, or the ball didn't seem to move about in any kind of random fashion, which would have suggested the wind had more influence. And De Gea stuck his arm up, and I think he might have got fingertips to it. Marshall was on the line. I possibly think Marshall's header didn't quite connect because of De Gea's fingertips, and then it went in off the far post. And much like Adam Smith's goal, which won goal of the month, it was a split second before I realised that it actually gone in, because you don't expect that to happen. And yeah, I mean, our results have turned around recently, and when things start to go your way, it's almost like luck's on your side again, isn't it? And scoring from a corner, like I said, you don't expect it, but you take it all day long, don't you?
You certainly do, and his delivery has been very decent. Stan's delivery of late, and he put it into the right area. I think De Gea could have done better with it. I think there's no doubt about that. But delighted to see it go in. A little bit like yourself, I was wary of the early goal. You know, I cast my mind back to the Spurs game when we started so well, and then got hit for 5. But yeah, it was great to see it go in, and the crowd erupted.
And Stanislas, of course, has gone from pretty much a player that we've probably looked at from the stands and shaken our heads and thought, why did Eddie buy him, to a real force in the team. And I think he'd be straight on the team sheet at the moment if he's fit. And he's weighing in with the goals as well. I mean, obviously he had a big say in the end of the Everton game, and he scored from a corner yesterday, but they don't say that when they say how many goals you scored each season. It just says the figure. And it's just great to see him not only contributing but weighing in with the goals, and he just I've said this probably the last couple of weeks, but it just seems to get better and better for him, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, he's been given that run of games that he needed. I think the stat is 4 assists or goals in the last 4 games. He was a much maligned player last year, no doubt about it. I remember being stopped at the services on the way back from the cup game against Villa last season, and being told, not that it has anything to do with me, but being told that I should make sure he never played for the club again. And there's always one, isn't there, that is picked out, you know, season upon season. If a result doesn't go your way and they're in the team, they're the first to take the stick. And Junior was taking the stick on the odd occasion. He got games last year, but I'm delighted for him. You know, a lesser player would have perhaps pushed for a loan move. It's only injuries that have brought him into the team, probably. But he's got his head down. He's worked hard, and he's reaping the rewards now.
I think it does demonstrate some truth in what Eddie says when he's asked about the players who are out of the team or out of the matchday squad. This tends to come up when we have cup fixtures, and he plays some of those players. And we listen to it, and I listen to it, and I think, yeah, is he just saying that? But then I guess he knows, and it's been proven a lot this season, that there may come a time that he's going to need to call on those players, which he has done, and then he's going to be relying on them to do the business. And we already spoke about the team spirit, but the sort of harmony inside the squad is such that he's able to somehow keep them at least happy enough not to want to go elsewhere or to sort of kick up a stink. And then when they do get their chance and they do get a little run of games, they can show what they can do. And of course, that's testament to his coaching as well. But yeah, it's easy to doubt what football managers say in public. And Eddie does play a smart game with the media, I think. But he also plays a very smart game with his management of the squad, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. I mean, there are players that are kicking their heels at the moment and that are frustrated. Make no mistake about that, speaking to them in and around the stadium. They are absolutely 100% behind the squad that are out there and that are being picked week in, week out. There is that harmony you speak of, and that is testament to Eddie's man management.
So another player that's gone from zero to hero in a shorter amount of time than Junior Stanislas is Artur Boruc. And again yesterday he made a couple of tremendous saves in quick succession in the first half. Memphis Depay, who was giving Adam Smith a bit of a torrid time in the first half with his pace, but he appeared to dive for a free kick. It was right in front of me, and it was quite convincing. And people around me were saying that's a dive, and I was like, oh, I'm not sure. Then when I saw it back on the telly, I thought, oh no, hang on, that was a dive.
Right.
And anyway, the ref awarded the free kick, and the free kick came in, and it kind of rebounded to Fellaini, who had a stab from, I won't say point blank range, but close range. Boruc reacted quickly, safe from him, and then deflected to McNair. and he stretched to save that one. And people around me, myself included, were jumping up, clapping and punching the air when he made those 2 saves, almost as if we'd scored a goal.
Well, it was as good as a goal, wasn't it? I mean, it was a cracking double save, and he's no spring chicken, Arter, to show that level of athleticism. I guess that's why that's what these guys are paid to do, and this is what they work towards day in, day out. But it was a terrific effort. It looked all ends up that it would be going in on both occasions. But I mean, the first save was the sort of save that you expect to see from De Gea. Actually, the way he spread himself, made himself really big, kind of just threw his legs and his arms all out. I managed to get something on it, and to then get himself back up again and just get the slightest of touches, actually, to fingertip it around the post was it was impressive stuff.
Yeah, and it's like, well, he's back now, and I'm glad that I, for once, made a point of saying on the podcast about Boris and how he perhaps has this body language which suggests to observers that he is arrogant and he, this cannot be true, obviously, that he doesn't care and all this sort of thing. So then when he makes a couple of errors, it's those are the things that tend to come up. But you see the pictures of him yesterday when the goal went in and he jumping in the air and all that kind of thing. I mean, there's no way Eddie Howe would put anybody on the pitch if they had the attitude that I just described.
No, and you look at him at the final whistle yesterday as well. He was as pumped and as excited as anybody else on that pitch. And
it's just great that he's got that confidence back, and he is in a little bit of a battle for the shirt with Federici, and both of them have had little niggling injuries, but at the moment I think he's going to hold on to that shirt, and I think most people would be happy that was the case.
I would say that yesterday that was up there as one of the best games probably the best game I've seen him have for us. I thought he was brilliant, and this element of competition that you mentioned, I think that's no bad thing. We've seen it with other players when they've come in. People have had to raise their game, and perhaps it just focuses the mind just that extra percent. But he was very, very good yesterday, I felt.
And I thought we played interesting tactics against United yesterday, and maybe somewhat similar to Chelsea as well. We've been under fire until recently from some quarters about having to change our style. We haven't changed our style because what they mean when they say that Martin Keown and his pals in the media is go direct, and we haven't done that, and at the moment we're having the last laugh, and let's hope that continues. But what we have done, and what we certainly did yesterday, was we defended our half a lot deeper, and we let United have a lot more of the ball. And I think Chelsea had a lot more of the ball than us, which is unusual. We tend to dominate the ball against everybody, and regardless of the result. And you could really see clearly that we were letting them come into our half, and we were putting our banks of four there, and just holding our positions and going with the game plan and letting them punch themselves out. And although they did have some chances, it was a very effective approach, wasn't it?
It was. I mean, your only worry there is if they're not going to play through you, which I don't think United would actually at the moment. The danger there is they lump it long, and they've got a real target man there in terms of Fellaini. But it paid off, and it paid off against Chelsea as well. We're working just as hard without the ball as we are with it. The stats have been well publicised. The distance that these boys are covering, and I don't think that changed yesterday. I don't think it changed against Chelsea. But you're right. I think they're saying there's not a great deal of damage you can do to us in your own half. So let's regroup. Let's find our shape. And then when we get the ball, let's be positive and let's break on it.
Yeah, I think he's really again found a solution that will work against teams with the quality that United should have, and Chelsea certainly do have, although you don't necessarily see it in their league positions. And yes, it's worked a treat on both occasions. I mean, all teams have close shaves where you think, oh, we were lucky there. But then, so did Chelsea, and so did and so did United. So what goes around comes around, as it were. Go on.
I mentioned there that we find our shape and then we break and we're positive, but we're still playing that possession football. It's still intricate at times. So I don't think we've really, that phrase, about philosophy, that hasn't changed, has it? I mean, the work rate is still there. The tempo is still there. The high pressing was still evident at times yesterday, for sure. Just perhaps not as high up the pitch as maybe earlier on in the season.
Yeah, I think we'll probably see it more against other teams. I think it's possible that it'll be a little bit more push higher up the pitch, like you said, against teams that maybe don't have potentially such quality, although you only need to look around at what's going on in the league at the moment, and everybody says it, even your manager's saying it in League 2, because it's true, you cannot underestimate the opposition. So I think we can rely on Eddie to do his homework on the opposition.
You mentioned the cheer that went up for the double save, and it was being celebrated like a goal. The pressing at times yesterday, we were hunting in packs, in twos or threes. You could see quite clearly the Josh King, who's worked his socks off, was closing down their last defender if he was in possession, and then your wide man and your central midfielder, quite often Harry, and then Matt Ritchie or perhaps Junior, they were pushing out and pushing on and closing down the two obvious options for that last man, and I was impressed by that, and clearly the crowd were too, because the crowd were cheering that like it was an attack.
Yeah, it's unbelievable the amount of work we're getting through, and I think that is a bit of a surprise to the opposition.
Yeah,
and I think it's possible. I hope they don't catch on too soon that Eddie may be setting a new standard for work rate in the division.
Yeah,
and I've said before, when people have asked me about Bournemouth, that Eddie could potentially have an enormous impact on the game in this country in the next 15 to 20 years. And it may be even now beginning to come true. And I just hope that he continues to have that impact with us. Yeah. And we don't see him go elsewhere. I mean, he wins a couple of games and then he's linked with England, and I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. But yeah, I mean, if he went to England, then fair enough. But I think it's probably a long way off. Now, we didn't allow them to have too many chances, but we did gift them one chance when Junior Stanislas, who we've been praising, but everybody makes errors, and Junior, he gifted the ball. He was trying to play it back to Simon Francis.
Yeah, he was.
But he played it into the path of Anthony Martial, and he was clean through. And I don't know how much he cost, but it was over £30 million. I mean, this is irrelevant. He's not thinking I am £30+ million player, and therefore I have to hit the target. But he should have hit the target, shouldn't he?
Yeah, he should. And actually, that's the sort of chance when he first came into the team. He was finishing all day long. So perhaps he's taken a bit of a knock to his confidence as well.
He was. I mean, the thing is, that was as good as it got for him yesterday. He did one little tricky move in our box towards the end of the
second
game,
half,
and then blazed it over.
Yeah,
I mean, it just must be so. I mean, everyone's having a good laugh at Van Gaal, but it must be so frustrating for him and the rest of their management team to see gilt-edged chances, especially that first one when Junior made that mistake, go begging. And I mean, not that I'm too worried about what's happening at United, but they must be tearing their hair out. But we were just as much in it as they were, and Harry Arter, who was playing those tremendous balls out of midfield last season up to Callum Wilson to run onto, and destroying the opposition with his pace and his clinical finishing, did similar yesterday when he played the ball up to Junior Stanislas, who'd obviously recovered from his mistake, and he had what looked like a great first touch. I couldn't tell whether it was slightly fortunate or not, but he played it lovely into his own path, and he showed their defence, who were a bit, anonymous in every sense yesterday, a clean pair of heels. Now, you can't expect him to be as clinical as Callum Wilson in these situations. Callum always goes early, doesn't he? He doesn't tend to try and round the keeper, But Junior did. I mean, fair enough. But De Gea did really well actually, and came out and grabbed it. And we went on to win the game. But I thought that was a chance that went begging. I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, it was. I think actually, if you watch the replay back, the ball just gets stuck under his feet at the very last minute when perhaps he would have hit it. But yeah, taking it a touch earlier. But we'll let him off, won't we?
We can let him off, all things considered. That's the kind of thing you would have got hammered for last season.
Yeah.
But you get a little more leeway when your performances improve.
Yeah, that's right.
But then they scored. This wasn't a contender for goal of the season. The ball that was their favourite ball over the top to Memphis, and there was some suggestion he was offside actually, but he got a little shot in, and Artur Boruc did well to save it. But then it kind of bounced around. I think it hit Simon Francis, fell to Fellaini, who was charging into near enough the 6-yard box. And I couldn't quite tell on the replays, and I watched them back a few times, but Fellaini went down on his knees. The ref didn't even look like he was going to give a penalty, but...
No, I thought he was. Yeah.
It looked like he was brought down, didn't it?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. And actually, we probably... I don't know whether Boruc would have gone for that or not. I think there were defenders around him, so perhaps not. But yeah, it certainly could have been a pen had it not gone in.
And then we had this unusual sight of a man who's like 6'5" plus his afro, kind of walking on his knees towards the ball. You think, how can this happen in a Premier League football match? Yeah. And then he just managed to sort of get up on one knee and stab it in with his foot, and Cook and Smith were kind of collapsed on the goal line. I'm not really sure what happened there. And they were level. But I wasn't worried like I was against Spurs that this is it now. We're gonna collapse. I mean, it was a bit of an unusual goal to concede. It's never great to concede a goal, but I didn't feel, oh right, we're in trouble now. It was kind of, well, did they deserve it? Maybe.
No, I'm with you. I mean, I think we saw a different. I think Spurs responded quicker than United, but also the football that Spurs were playing, little pretty passes in and around us. I didn't see that from United. It was a fairly fortuitous goal, and like you, I wasn't overly worried. I was obviously perturbed that we conceded, but no, I wasn't worried.
No, and then that was in the 24th minute. The rest of the first half was not as dramatic in terms of chances. We had a few. Richie had one, but he put it straight at the keeper. But we essentially saw the half out.
This podcast is sponsored by the White Bear Micropub in Southbourne-on-Sea. No loud music, no TVs, and no ringtones. Just good ale, good conversation, and good times. Just like a pub used to be. Check out www.thewhitebear.co.uk.
We came out in the second half, and I was again expecting United to kind of come out with the manager's words ringing in their ears, and put on a bit more endeavour to actually try and win the game. I mean, you look at a player like Mata, who until yesterday had quite admired. I thought he was good at Chelsea, and I was surprised they let him go. United paid a load of money for him, and he seems to have done all right at United. I mean, he just looked so ordinary yesterday.
I didn't think that. I'll be brave enough to disagree with you on that. I thought he looked a class apart from the rest of his teammates. Actually, the way he was pinging crossfield balls and picking out passes, I thought actually he had quite a decent game. I was stood between the two dugouts for a good proportion of the game, and speaking to some of the sort of club medical staff that I was stood around, that they too were quite impressed. So, but we all see the game differently. But yeah, I mean, aside from him, I didn't see anybody stepping up.
No, maybe I was focusing on us, and because he didn't have any particular contribution to any of their...
No, nothing came of any of those passes. You're right.
He was hammered last night for his positioning on the corners.
Yeah, defensively not too sound. But then I guess that's not his.
No, he's been told to stand. To stand, he was stood in sort of this no man's land on the corner of the 18-yard box for for the corners, and I mean that's obviously where he's been told to stand, and so he has to stand there. But they were making plenty of hay on Match of the Day last night over that. But anyway, they just weren't. I thought we actually improved in the second half and sort of took the game by the scruff of the neck. And I mean, I'm sure Eddie said it in much more technical fashion than this, but he's essentially saying to the players at half time, we can win this game. Yeah. Let's go out there and do that. So and we pretty much did, and then we scored. It proved to be the winning goal in the 54th minute. It started with Simon Francis, who ran from deep in our half. Yeah. And well, he didn't go around 5 United players. He just kind of ran past them and invented this.
Just ran out of the way.
Yeah. he invented a new position, the attacking centre-half wing-back. And it was just unbelievable when you see it again. I saw Jamie Redknapp going through it on a little clip from Sky and saying if you'd have seen the shot of where Francis picked the ball up and somebody had said to you, what he's going to do now is run pretty much the entire length of the pitch and then have a shot against Man United, say, no, that couldn't happen. But that is what happened. Yeah. And he like quite a stinging shot, and De Gea had to push it away at the near post, but that led to the corner. And then we did the old corner routine, which we've seen countless. I know. I mean, Warren Cummings, Brett Pittman, Jan Kermagon, they've all had a bite of that particular cherry over the years, and we saw it again, and it was a little bit closer to the goal than we've seen with those.
I was looking for the step over.
Yeah, we didn't see it yesterday. What happened to that? But it was all very choreographed. Really, is probably the right word, because I mean, I noticed some of this myself, and this again was analysed on Sky, and you can see that Charlie Daniels stands in front of Fellaini and just blocks him from getting into the space. Andrew Sermon runs away and pulls the defender with him, and it creates the room, which then King gives Daley Blind a little shove and then runs into that place where he's expecting the ball to be. And the delivery was good. The ball was slightly in the air, but he bobbled, didn't it? Yeah, he tucked it in lovely though, didn't he?
He did. It was a cool, calm finish, and I thought Cookie actually on the near post as well did well to block his man off. And yeah, we've seen them go wrong. It's one of those when it goes wrong, there's a real old groan. But I mean, Eddie and Jason will have been chuffed to bits to see that one go in on so many levels. Like you say, very, very well choreographed, and a real team goal.
I was amused to see. I don't know if you saw the little clip on Sky. John Terry was on it as well. I didn't. Right, and okay. He said that in their team meeting for the Chelsea game, they were aware of that corner and sort of look out for it. And he said, but they weren't aware of the corner we scored from.
Oh, really?
So, yeah. But we've scored 3 goals in a row from corners, essentially.
Wow. I mean, that is not very Bournemouth, is it?
No, where was the last time that happened?
Yeah. Well, we're forever bemoaning the fact we don't score from set pieces or from corners. So, it was good to see it go in.
I think they're going to have to change the signal though, because they showed Matt Ritchie doing a little kind of digging a little bit of the turf with his boot and then bouncing the ball and saying this must be the signal for that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
okay.
that one went global, unfortunately. So, but it doesn't take too much to change the signals. It's just you have to hope the players remember what they are.
Yeah.
Anyway, that puts 2-1 up, and deservedly so. And then, we just played, I thought, really well for the rest of the second half. Artur Boruc made another save from Fellaini. He was quite fortunate, Fellaini, because the ball ricocheted back to him, and it was a decent enough shot. Artur Boruc, this is. He fumbled it, but he kept it out, and then Adam Smith booted it away. And then, United had, I can't really remember them having any other chance. I think I read somewhere that in each second half of their last 3 games, they've had 1 shot on target, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Same yesterday, which is well, a thing you can easily point out to say this wasn't the Manchester United we were really expecting. And anyway, Louis van Gaal was relieved, I think, in the 65th minute to see Josh King go off. He felt his hamstring, and we're all thinking, oh no, not another injury. But apparently he's had problems in the past, and he knew the telltale signs.
Yeah, it was just a precaution, I believe. Yeah,
yeah, and Glenn Murray come on, but we've week after week recently, I've heaped praise on Stanislas and King obviously scored that goal against United yesterday, having been essentially discarded by them, which must have been hugely rewarding for him. I mean, Van Gaal wasn't the manager, and not only that, after the game, Van Gaal was saying that his players were really struggling to deal with King. I mean, what a player!
Rewind a few weeks, you would have laughed, would you not?
Yeah.
Had somebody told you that we'd be saying that. I mean, I think Josh had a very difficult situation. He had big boots to fill in terms of Callum Slot there in the team, and he has worked his socks off. And a goal yesterday, it was thoroughly deserved.
And Eddie says a couple of weeks ago, the best is yet to come from Josh King, and Eddie says it, and then it comes true.
This is it. Looking forward to it.
But anyway, Glenn Murray came on, and I thought Murray did well, actually. I think he's looking a good player for us, and he hasn't got the pace, but he's got plenty of know-how. He puts it about, and he's obviously good in the air as well. He had a couple of chances which didn't quite work out for him. One, I think he received the ball from Dan Gosling, and he did everything right. He took it round the defender.
Inside.
Yeah, but then he got it on his left foot and, well, blazed it over. And then he also blazed over from a corner, which was harder because it was behind him, and he had to take it first time. And the worst thing about that was they didn't show it in the highlights on Match of the Day, but when they were doing the analysis afterwards, they were talking about our corner routines as well, and they showed it, and 3 times they showed Glenn Murray boot the ball over the bar from that corner.
They've got a habit of doing that, haven't they, on Match of the Day, missing out some real decent chunks of play that they'll then show in the analysis.
Yeah, I've really noticed that this year, actually, in terms of how you take what you see, or how like previous seasons taken what I see as Match of the Day as the tale of what has happened in whatever game they're showing, having seen a lot of the games that we've played this season and then seen them on Match Day afterwards. You think, well, that wasn't the game I saw. That wasn't the game I saw. No, it was something different. But
I think Murray. I think Murray. I think it's done him good having a few weeks on to really get used to the way that we play. I think he was quite open about that when he first arrived, that this was not a style of play that he'd played before, and it was going to take him time. It wasn't a natural fit. Certainly playing up top by himself, but he's obviously studied it and he's worked hard at it and he's trained, and like Josh, he's come good.
Yeah, I think coming off the bench, he's a real handful to bring in. They don't want to see him coming on. I mean, he's not quite he is a physical presence. He's not the Steve Fletcher type physical presence, but he's certainly no, exactly can't match that. But yeah, you don't really want to see him coming on in the last part of the game, and that brings me on to the other thing I was going to say about the end of the game. We saw it out, I thought, really well. Yeah, and you know, I was expecting the kitchen sink from United during injury time in the last few minutes. Just didn't happen at all. And we were doing the similar thing to what happened at Chelsea, winning free kicks, catching them offside, goal kicks, every little thing that can just run the clock down. And I think it goes back to what we were saying about our team. They're so fit, aren't they? They can play all the way to the end of the game. I mean, I don't want to say make a statement without the full facts, but I think we must be, if not the fittest team in the division, certainly in the top 2.
I'm pretty sure the stats are out there, and I'd be amazed if there was anyone deemed fitter than us based on those stats. We alluded to earlier the distance covered, the short sprints. We're right up there on all of those. Very, very fit, and that's a huge achievement from a team that are coming up and making a step up. a division. To just kind of get your head around the tempo of the game is one thing, but to outwork your opponents is quite another. And they're a real credit to the club, aren't they?
Yeah, and outwork them by some distance as well, which is the the thing that was really, really taking people aback. And I think some of that's been put down to the fact that the games are only once every 7 days or so.
Yeah.
And so there's more time to put the sort of specific fitness work in, which I guess from the club's point of view is great. I missed some of those midweek games, and we keep getting drawn away in the cups as well.
But, I know, and international breaks. And
we can't complain, especially not recently. But yeah, we saw the game out brilliant. Pandemonium at the final whistle. I mean, emotional scenes left, right and centre, and obviously we talked about Harry Arter as well. And it's just, it just seems like Eddie Howe and the players are just doing it again. It doesn't seem to matter. 8 players fit in League Two, and a transfer embargo to was essentially an injury crisis in the Premier League. It doesn't seem to make any difference to him, does it?
No, it is remarkable. The back four that have played the last couple of games, I don't know if you've seen the stat, but that they of course all played for us in League One. Smithy on loan, but they've all played for us in League One, and they've stepped up 2 divisions and are holding their own. A clean sheet away to the champions last week. It's unbelievable. None of us could have. You take out your captain, you take out your 2 most expensive signings, you take out your top scorer, and actually the focal point of your team, and you're still pulling out results like we have done this week. And it's just brilliant. A friend of mine constantly reminds me of we were in League One and we got promoted, and I said to him that day, I said, he'd only been a fan for maybe 5-10 years. I said to him, just soak this up. This is as good as it gets. And, deep down I probably thought that was as good as it was ever going to get. Promotion to the Championship. But here we are, and with a toast of the media, with a toast of the footballing world right now, I think. There's a great deal of goodwill out there towards us. And it's just brilliant being a Bournemouth fan right now.
It is. It's fantastic. I used to live for many years in London, and people would say, "Who do you support?" And I'd almost have to explain who we were, as this kind of incredulous look came on their face. I guess that's all over now. You don't need to do that anymore. And I don't live in London. I've moved back home, thank goodness, because my return to this area has coincided with our rising fortunes. I started taking my 5-year-old this season. I was a bit worried that he'd missed the good times. He just missed the boat, but he's. Well, there's just more good times to come. Hopefully, you kind of wonder where it will end. Hopefully, we'll continue in all the games for the rest of the season. But certainly, Christmas is such a crucial period. West Brom next week. We've got Tony Pulis coming up against him. So, looking forward to that one. I mean, if we could get to, I can't believe I'm saying this because I certainly didn't think it 2 or 3 weeks ago. If we could get to 20 points by the January window, by the turn of the year, then I wouldn't say I'd have every confidence we're going to stay up, but it would be a massive boost, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think for sure that, looking at the players we have to come back as well, I think there are 3 teams for sure worse than us. I think West Brom play a similar style actually to Chelsea and Man U. I wouldn't write us off getting points away there. I think Arsenal's going to be tough. I think it's going to be very tricky. And actually, I think Palace will be quite tough. They're very effective away from home, aren't they? But you just don't rule anything out after a week like we've had. You just don't rule it out, and there's just a wonderful air of optimism, isn't there? It's it's brilliant.
Yeah, and the thing is, we've seen it before, and we've seen it before in 3 other divisions. And you think, we're in the Premier League, we can't do it there. But then you beat Chelsea and Man United back to back, and you think, hang on, maybe we are, and you sort of start forgetting that not forgetting because you want to enjoy it, but looking at the games as opposed to the history and the size of the clubs that you're playing against. And I think that's certainly what happened in the Championship. And I'm not saying we're gonna take the league title anytime soon, but we certainly found our feet. Now, I know you've got to rush off in a minute, Mike, but just before you go, I haven't spoken to you since we played Spurs at home, and that was the game which ended with a bizarre incident involving some kind of radio mic, and you quickly became, probably before you'd even left the ground, the focus of Bournemouth Stadium announcer unleashes foul-mouthed tirade by 11,000 people. And obviously it quickly emerged, thankfully, and the guy fronted up and said, no, it wasn't him, it was me. That must have been very strange.
It was a bit strange, yeah. I mean, when it initially happened, I was sat there about to announce there was some time added on, I think, or maybe man of the match. And it came through, and I was sat with my friend, and he looked at me, and the people around me, of course, were looking at me, and I was making gestures, it's clearly not me, and that was awkward. And I get up to the sound box, and they're saying, "Well, what happened? What?" It just there's just no way that could have been me. I wondered if perhaps it was some kind of interference of some description, but I couldn't think for the life of me where. Maybe somebody on a gaming headset or something. As transpired, it was the guys from the Spurs podcast who were setting up outside. Before I left the ground, you're quite right. It was on the Independent online and the Observer online and the Mirror. I think I was being sent links all over. Kind of Facebook and Twitter went mad. I was having people phoning me and saying that, I can't believe, what happened? How did this happen? It really wasn't me, folks. Thankfully, within an hour or two, they'd owned up. Obviously, it could have been an uncomfortable sort of 24, 48 hours while we looked into it some more. But we have put things in place now that will ensure that can't happen anymore. New kit has been purchased, and it can't be interfered with, thankfully. So no chance of a rerun of that.
Oh well, it kept us all amused at the time, and
I'm glad it did. I'm glad it did.
I was much relieved when the guy posted his little.
Did you think it was me, Michael? Did you?
No, I didn't think it was you, because I just thought, well, obviously we see you at the stadium, and I've spoken to you here, and you think, well, he's not going to do that, is he? I mean, it's just ridiculous. But I sort of put myself in your shoes, and suddenly the national, possibly even the global media immediately pick up on it, and I don't know if they named you in any of them, but it's kind of like they just write whatever they want.
Not named in any that I knew, but of course, so many people know me as the announcer there, and all of my friends and family know me as the announcer there, and word got round to them pretty swiftly. Like I say, it was a bit awkward, but they were the guys from Spurs, fair play to them. They were very quick to own up, and I think they did quite well out of it. They've got a few more subscribers to their podcast off the back of it.
Yeah, hopefully we'll beat them next time and get a little bit of revenge for that. Don't forget to take your mic to their ground, Mike. You could you could make hay there.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds like a plan.
All right. Well, Mike, I'll let you go because I know you've got to rush off. You've become something of a lucky charm for the podcast, because last time I spoke to you, we'd beaten Bolton and been promoted to the Premier League. This time we'd obviously living the things we were dreaming about that night, which was beating Man United in the Premier League. So hopefully next time I speak to you, we'll have qualified for Europe or something like that.
Sounds good to me, mate. Sounds good to me.
All right, good, man. Happy Christmas to you, Mike, and we'll speak
and to you and to everybody listening. Thanks, mate.
Great insight there from Mike. Really appreciate him sparing your time to come on the podcast, especially now that he's keeping such glamorous company in the Premier League. I think we'll all have a spring in our step on the way to the Hawthorns next week, so let's hope we can silence the throttles chirping and continue what so far has been a very cherry Christmas. So the cherries in all departments, and goodbye.
The White Bear Micropub on Southbourne Grove is a proud supporter of AFC Bournemouth and sponsor of all departments. Head to the Bear for real ales, locally produced food, and plenty of good conversations about the cherries. Check out www.thewhitebear.co.uk.